All right, final blessings. Back with another video. Before I do that, a couple quick announcements. All right, again, if you're interested in a spiritual reading or a spiritual consultation, I offer various different types of readings. Telepathic demonic readings, Santa Muerte readings, Egyptian oracle readings, deity readings to see what experience gods and goddesses walk with you. Shadow work readings, which is, we always should be doing shadow work, continually uncovering the shadow of the hidden self. A great reading to identify what it is you need to be working on. Remember, your ritual work should always have direction, purpose, and intent, and it should always be focused on your needs first, not just your wants. Right? I'm going to keep stressing that in these videos because I find over the years people are doing and spending a lot of time and energy on ritual work that is centered on wants, and that's cool and everything. But when you're not handling the necessities and the needs about yourself that you need to take care of, you tend to get yourself in situations that are not very pleasant. So if you're interested in a spiritual reading or a consultation, shoot me an email, khnum19@gmail.com. If you want to sign up for classes, the way to sign up for classes is to go to the official Primordial Chaos Patreon page, located at patreon.com/Baniti, Baniti. That's patreon.com/Baniti, Baniti.com. Tier 3, that's the tier you want to join. That will give you access to the 3 private classes I do every month on Patreon, in addition to the group ritual we do at the end of the month. And keep in mind, when you join the Patreon page, okay, you get access to everything in the archives going 4+ years back. So you don't just get access from the day forward, moving forward. The day you join, moving forward, you get access to everything in the archive. I have a bunch of ongoing classes now, with constant new classes being added to all of these ongoing series. If you want to check it out to see what classes I have going on, it's very simple. Go to patreon.com/Baniti, Baniti. Go to the collections section. You will see all of the ongoing classes with new classes being added consistently, new content being added consistently. We have a bunch of ongoing series like Ancient Egyptian Vampiric class, Telepathic Sorcery, Luciferian Magic and Self-Mastery class, Shadow Work class, Esoterical Occult Bible Study class, Kundalini Meditation and Awakening class. There's a bunch more. Check it out. And these classes are continual, ongoing. You can attend the classes live, and it gives you a chance to interact with me and others in the class. Or if you can't make it live, again, don't worry, everything is recorded. You can catch the recording in your own free time. You also get access to everything, all the class work we're doing, the ritual work we're doing in the classes, everything. All right, check it out, patreon.com/Baniti, Baniti, tier 3. Also, don't forget to check out our social media pages, Primordial Chaos 9 on Instagram, all one word, Primordial Chaos 2 words on Facebook. I also upload all the new YouTube content there. Also, check us out on TikTok, Primordial Chaos 2 words. Check out the Primordial Chaos podcast, available on Spotify and all major podcast platforms. The direct link to the podcast, along with my contact email address, all the links to the social media pages, and the direct link to the Primordial Chaos Patreon page to sign up for classes. All of those links are in the description box of this video. All right. So I want to talk about something. It's a serious topic. It's a serious matter, but it's also very important. So an individual reached out to me, and I believe based on their email, they might be from Russia, from the language I saw on the header, but I could be wrong. But that's not important. And it was very, an issue that this individual is dealing with. And it's about, when you lose your self-identity, your self-worth, maybe you fall off the path, you could be dealing with, could be depression, it could be chemical and hormonal imbalance, could be depression, many things. But Usually in regards when it's described to something like that. When you don't feel like you have self-worth, or maybe you're just not motivated, or maybe to a degree you have given up on life, as they say, or just don't have a zest for life anymore, right? So I want to be careful and cautious when I talk about this. Yes, that can be preludes, doesn't always have to be, but can be preludes to suicide or taking one's life, but not all the time. Doesn't always mean that, right? The problem when something like this happens, when you just feel like you have no self-worth, or you have no zest for life or motivation, or you're struggling to get back on track, there could be a lot of contributing factors to that, right? Now, I always suggest to people who are dealing with this, first rule out anything medical, right? Because sometimes people don't take the proper steps and channels to get things diagnosed correctly. And I'm not just talking about diagnosed medically, I'm talking about spiritually, all of those things, okay? So first and foremost, I would strongly suggest rule out everything medically first. Make sure it's something that's not medically, like, depression, that could be causing those things, right? Because depression, as they say, is the silent killer, right? It just slowly eats away at you, and it just takes, your energy for life itself. Okay, so I would always suggest first look at the medical aspect. Now, if that's not the issue and you've got the clarity that that's not what it is, it could be something of a spiritual nature, right? Maybe there's some psychological, mental, or emotional blockage. Was there some type of trauma that activated this current state that an individual could be in? If you're feeling like that, and let me give you an example. Did you recently, or this happens a lot to people who lose loved ones, right? Is that feeling that you're feeling, is it because did you lose a loved one, a relative, a parent, a child, and especially to lose a small child for a parent is man, just thinking about it, for me, having it, still having a younger child, that's traumatic. So the next thing is, was there a traumatic event that maybe you can trace the origins or the beginnings of what you're feeling or what you're going through? Because a serious traumatic event in your life can shift you into that place, into that space. Okay? Other contributing factors is there are a lot of things going on in your life. What I mean by that is there a lot of disappointment. Sometimes a relationship or marriage or a divorce is a very painful breakup in a love relationship with your significant other. Sometimes people just don't process that well, right? It takes them a long time, and sometimes get stuck in a rut and they can't get out of it. So is there any things going on in your life that initiated real supreme disappointment, right? Maybe you had some goals and projects and you set out to do things and it just didn't happen. Because one thing for sure is we know nobody just feels like that out of the blue. There has to be events that have triggered it, moments in your life, could be traumas, could be personal things that transpired. It could also be, as I said earlier, something medical, right? So you want to go through this whole process and make sure that none of those, narrow it down until none of them apply till you get to the core of what is causing it. Now, my concern with this, and we have to be very careful, and it's a little concerning, is you don't want to spiral out of control, because then the door to even bigger problems can start to open up for you, right? So you're going to have to figure out ways when you're feeling like this, right? How can you do things to kind of change your mindset and your approach? It's tough when you're feeling like that and there's no motivation there. Start in little small steps. As far as spiritually getting grounded back on your path, start with simple meditations. They can be very brief. They don't have to be long. A basic invocation followed by a meditation. Or sometimes just, sitting in silence and contemplating and putting, your thoughts in order, right? Doesn't have to be a meditation, but just, bringing the spirit down and harmonizing it and kind of just recollecting and trying to put things into perspective, right? And here's something that might sound a little odd. Sometimes it's just about silencing the mind and making it still and just sitting in silence and darkness, not so much having really to focus on anything in particular, but just to slow the mind down from the amount and influx of thoughts that we receive when we're going through things like this. So centering your thoughts and focusing your thoughts is very critical and very important, in my opinion, in regards to this. Okay. Now, I would always suggest to anybody because as I said in the beginning, it doesn't always mean people dealing with stuff like this automatically links you to suicidal thoughts, but the reality is it can, and we're not going to sugarcoat it, right? So I would also strongly suggest if anytime you have thoughts like that, running through your mind, that's when it's time to get some professional help. Okay? Because we don't want to spiral out of control. So essentially what I'm saying is, in the beginning, you might have to force yourself to get into a routine. Because idly doing nothing when you feel like that and giving yourself too much time to think about certain things is going to make you fall deeper into that rut, is what I'm saying. Okay, so you're going to have to, in one shape, form, or fashion, figure out a way to start initiating consistent spiritual practices. Okay? Because, when you have an idle mind, that's a playground for a lot of bad things. Okay? Now, the most important thing that I think sometimes goes over people's head, if you're a person in that situation and you're going through what I'm describing, this is when you want to draw upon your spiritual path more than anything. And I know part of the problem is the lack of motivation, but ask yourself, what connections and relationships have I established with certain spirits that can help me get out of this funk? So I would also recommend highly, if you have a matriarchal or a patriarchal spirit, a particular spirit that's special to you more so than others, or you work with, and you consider it that type of spirit, God, goddess, or demon, this is the time where you want to now go harder and connect with that spirit for maybe some clarity and answers to why you're feeling the way you do. Now, I always suggest to people, when you're dealing with any type of problem, I don't care if it's a physical problem or mental, emotional, you must always attack it first spiritually before you can attack it physically. Okay? That's important to understand. Okay? Because sometimes we're doing things, again, it could be based off of assumption. It could be based off of what we think it is. And maybe we're individuals that get highly influenced by others, right? And we can take wrong advice or bad advice, and it just doesn't work out. Okay? But I'm a strong believer in, one, going back to what I said a few minutes ago, identifying the root cause of the problem. You don't just feel like that. It doesn't just happen out of the blue. Something creates that. And then from that point forward, when you identify that, its origins for the most part, then it's easier to come up with a plan of attack. Because look, nobody wants to feel like that, excuse me, all the time. That's a miserable, damn my voice, that's a miserable way to feel, okay? And yes, I'm going to be 100%. If there's anybody out here listening to this and this applies to you, don't be afraid to confide in somebody and ask for help. Because part of the problem when shit goes haywire, it's amazing how we find out after the fact that the individual just never asked for help. Right? Some people just keep certain things bottled up inside of them. And what they're not realizing is, in the long run, that becomes very detrimental and damaging, because the longer you keep these things in and you don't deal with them, they tend to implode. And we don't want that, right? We want, on this path, you're supposed to live a very healthy, productive, and prosperous life. That's what the occult in the left hand is truly about. I don't care what anybody says. This is not a path about accepting a state of being miserable or sick or poor, right? This is a path of success. Now, another issue that can be creating an individual to sink into, a point like this. Sometimes people are so busy living their lives trying to get validation from others. And let me stress this is important. Okay, you don't need to be validated by anybody. Okay? Sometimes people cave into the pressure of that. So I'm here to tell you clearly, you don't need this validation about anything you do in your life. It doesn't need to be validated by anything or anybody. I don't care what anybody says. Okay? You need to validate things for yourself. Okay? The only person you need validation from is you. So sometimes people cave into the peer pressure of things around them. They feel like they got to live their lives to please others because they don't know how to say no. And I stress that sometimes you're just going to have to. You got to have thick skin to be on this path. I've said that from day one. But sometimes people put themselves in situations and ruts because they can't deal with the pressure of other people around them. And maybe you're an individual in a predicament where you're dependent upon. And sometimes that can be overwhelming or taxing. Or like I said, maybe you're a person who stresses out over how other people see them or perceive it, how other people see you or perceive you. Don't seek validation from anybody outside of yourself. All right, that's step one. I don't care what anybody says. Because when you're looking for validation outside of yourself, stuff like this can happen. Now, again, I'm just throwing out a bunch of different scenarios. It could be any of these. It could be some of them. It could be one of them. Right? I don't know. We're dressing this at a whole. Okay? Because we do have people who get into situations like this. Okay? We do have people who... Sorry about that. We do have people who get caught up in these type of scenarios, right? So again, I don't want to be overly long-winded with it. You get the point. This is, in my opinion, this is something of serious concern. And as in a quote-unquote an occult family, if you want to say it, in that regards, there's not a lot of us. We're not a large quote-unquote very public worldwide group. We're out here, but sometimes us too, we don't have support systems. And sometimes that can be your geographical location, unfortunately. I get so many people that reach out to me in the occult about their location and where they're at. There's nobody here in this area in the occult. And I get that. That's tough. you got to, there are online groups, there are other options. I always say be careful with the online shit, because there's a lot of bullshitters and scammers out there on the online shit. So I always say be careful. I always tell people to be careful. So either way, seek some guidance and seek some help. Okay. I always tell people, you do have options. Okay. So again, not to beat, a dead, as they say, a dead horse, but it is a serious issue. Okay. And sometimes like I said, I did a video a while back. Sometimes we just don't check on each other, right? Right. Sometimes it's as simple as we get caught up in our everyday shit, and we don't check on each other, right? Sometimes it's as simple as checking in on people, seeing how they doing. We don't do it. Okay. But again, to sum up, you have to start establishing basic practices consistently. Don't need to be anything heavy and long-winded, because you want to slowly, gradually build yourself back up to get on your path. So don't go back in doing long-winded, over, doing certain things, because that's not going to help. That's going to actually lose your interest. Like I said, start with basic meditations. You could do sigil work. You could do things that are simple, but this is the time when you're going through things like this. In my opinion and experience, this is the time where you want to draw upon your spiritual path more than any other time. So it's one thing to just sit there and recognize the fact that you're in a situation like that, but it's another thing to not do anything about it. And remember, help doesn't begin until you got to start helping yourself first, right? You can't expect nobody's going to be able to do it all for you, right? So hopefully use those guidelines, rule out everything first on a physical and a medical perspective, right? And then kind of take it from there, right? Are there any traumas that recently happened in your life? Did you go through anything serious, emotional, a serious breakup or a divorce? Did you lose a job? Did your finances crash, right? These are all things that can create this state of mind. Sometimes it's none of those things, and it's spiritual. Could be some psychological, mental, or emotional blockage there that you could have picked up a long time ago. Something recently, right? But the ways to get out of it is getting back into consistent practice in what you do. Trust me, that's the start. And at first you might have to force yourself, but you gotta once the body gets used to you set that rhythm and that tone, you'll start to slowly but surely get back to yourself. Okay? So again, if you're anybody out there listening to this and you're dealing with this, take heed to these steps, try them, see what happens, and we wish you nothing but the best. Get back on track and be the person that you're destined to be. All right. Hopefully this helped. I'm going to wrap this video up. Again, if you need to reach out to me, all the links are in the description box of this video. If you need to reach out to me, my contact email address for spiritual readings, the social media pages, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, all in there. If you need to reach out to me for classes, the direct link to the Primordial Chaos page to sign up for classes, all of that is also in the description box of this video. The link to the podcast, you name it. All the information you need to reach out to me and get out to me, it's in the description box of this video. I wish you all the best. Further blessings. Talk soon.